I get a lot of questions about what table saw do I recommend, and I always recommend the SawStop because the table saw is just such a dangerous tool. I cut my hand way back in the early 90s. I've seen a few people just recently on Instagram cut their hand pretty severely. And so, I mean, you just combine the safety feature with such an amazing saw, it's kind of a no-brainer. And for me, you know, I've been doing this for a long time, and ironically, I haven't had a SawStop in the shop until almost a year ago. And I was over at Green Street Joinery, and I got to use Rob and Jeff's 3 horsepower industrial table saw, SawStop, same one as this one here. And their reasoning for getting the SawStop was that it's a great saw, and that they use the saw so much that something could happen, you know, because it happens that quick. So I'll tell you real quick how I cut my hand all those years ago. Generally, when you're making rips on the table saw, and I'm just going to put this blade down right away, even though the saw is not on. Why not just put the blade down? So anyway, how I cut my hand was I cut my left hand, and I find that a lot of woodworkers do cut their left hand. Generally, your left hand should be sort of out of the picture. You know, it should be over here somewhere. But I was making a thin rip, and I guess the wood started to veer off of the fence, and then kind of without even knowing it, my left hand came to push it against the fence, and of course the wood binded and shot back and brought my hand over the blade with it. Now I was pretty fortunate because I ended up with just a few stitches, but a couple of months after my accident, my cousin Tom did exactly the same thing, pretty much the same procedure, and he ended up cutting his index finger like through the nail down to about the first knuckle. So much worse. Luckily he's okay today, you know, but you can still see it, of course, because his nails are kind of messed up. But that's what happens. No matter how much experience you have, you can make a mistake and have an injury that will last you a lifetime. So for me, it's a no-brainer. It's SawStop. It's just such great safety technology combined with an amazing saw. So that's what I wanted to say about the safety. But what I really want to get into is the saw is just an amazing saw. Because I'm not really thinking about the safety, because I'm going to treat this saw as if it doesn't have a safety feature. I'm going to use it as safely as possible, you know, as I have for the last 30-something years, aside from that one dumb move. But generally, I don't want to test this, so I'm going to be safe. So what really matters to me is the saw. This saw is just so right on the money. I'll go ahead and start it up because it's so smooth. I mean, I've seen a few videos, and in fact on Instagram I put a nickel on here just to see what happens. And of course the nickel doesn't move because this saw is almost 700 pounds, and it's just really solid. So what I love about the saw, and I'm not going to get real technical, is just that the fence is so right on the money. I mean, look at how easy it is to move this. It's really easy to set up because it's your basic T-square fence. You've got your window over here with a magnified bubble, and then you can take your measurement off your blade, set up your fence. So, you know, if you set this thing at 8 inches, you're going to be ripping at 8 inches. So there's none of this, you know, measuring from the fence to the tip of the blade kind of stuff. If I want to make a rip at 12 inches, I've set the fence and I'm good to go. Another thing is, just because my left shoulder is kind of messed up, because I guess I'm getting old, I love the fact that the raising and lowering the blade is effortless. I mean, it's just so easy to do, super smooth. So that's, you know, that goes with the tilting the blade too. Same kind of thing, really easy to use. Of course, when I'm tilting the blade, I usually use my right hand for whatever reason. Dust collection in the SawStop is like no other, because that's kind of a rookie move. Because you don't have, you know, in most table saws you just have an open cabinet and all the dust goes like falls to the bottom. There's a little dust port down there. But SawStop has contained this whole mechanism in kind of a tight little rectangle. And at the bottom of that rectangle is a dust port for a 4-inch hose. And so the dust collection is just amazing in this saw. Now, if you want to increase your dust collection, you can then put the guard on and you'll have additional dust extraction. And that's really easy. There's a little magnetic door over here, and that will allow you to remove the riving knife. And then you can drop your guard in. And so when my son Walter is using the saw, he's using it with the guard. So now you can see how easy that was. And then you can have the additional dust extraction at the back. I generally will just use the saw with the riving knife, mainly because I don't have dust extraction set up, and I like to kind of see the blade. Anyway, that's just a really nice feature. As far as like setting this saw up, the instructions were really super clear, and there wasn't much to it. So other than attaching the 2 side tables and the fence and this little side table over here, there wasn't much adjusting to do. I didn't have to adjust the trunnion. That was right on the money. The trunnion adjustment on this saw is, I haven't really looked into it, but apparently it's much easier to adjust than other table saws. And the one thing I did do just recently is, and if you don't know this, because look, I've been doing this a long time and I didn't really know it. You want the saw to kind of veer off, or not the saw, the fence, to just be a tiny bit over to the right, and that will reduce any of those blade marks that you get. So the way I do that is I'll take a block of wood and I'll kind of line it up with my miter gauge slot there, lock it in place, and it's kind of just touching. And it's touching a little bit more over here, and I can kind of kick this over a little bit more. So now it's not touching at all. And now it's starting to touch. So I know that the fence is just kind of a little bit over, and that's going to give me a smoother cut. So short story long, that's what I say to my daughter. So long story short, if you're gonna get a table saw, get a SawStop, because you just do not want to have an injury. And if you're going to get a cabinet saw, I recommend this saw. I mean, if you're in it for the long game, this is a great saw. It'll last you a lifetime. I do have a 3 horsepower motor. I just didn't think I needed anything stronger than a 3 horsepower motor, so that's what I went with. Of course, if you are you don't have a lot of space, or you've got kind of a mobile shop, or you're taking the saw on the job, then I would lean towards the job site saw. But if you're setting up a shop similar to mine, I can't say enough good things about this SawStop 3 horsepower industrial saw.